those people? Huh? Who are they all? Huh? Hello, BookTube, and welcome to your Daily Penguin. This is our tour through my Penguin Classic wall, book by book and author by author, and I have been looking at the wall. I've been looking at the wall lately because lately we had been for a couple of months doing a relatively steady chronological pace from the ancient world forward because of an organizing spate that I had a little while ago. But I've been looking at the shelves, trying to decide what was being missed. I'd had it noted by a few people that something seemed to be missing. Some authors, some works. So I never need much of an excuse to go and hang out at my Penguin wall. So I went and hung out at my Penguin wall, looked all around at the things that I had picked and hadn't picked. And the book that we have today is a result of that search, and it's going to cause, as I foretold, chronological whiplash because we're going back 1,500 years from where we were to AD 175 thereabouts. This is the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. This is the Bickford Smith design of these Penguin Classic hardcovers. These lovely, lovely hardcover Penguin Classics. This thing is they aren't all exactly the same size, and they aren't all exactly the same design. They have sewn bindings, they have acid-free pages, they have the built-in bookmark. They are absolutely lovely items, absolutely lovely. The Chaucer version, for instance, is Neville Coghill, and there are a bunch of others. And this is the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, which I don't have in any other format. I don't have the Penguin Classic black spine paperback of this book. This is Martin Hamid's translation from the first few years of the 21st century, with extensive notes of the addresses to myself, the cod philosophy, cod stoicism, self-help dude bro lectures that the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius gave to himself at various points in his long career of egregious and hypocritical self-pity. And it's unlike anything else that we have, obviously, from the ancient world. It's unlike anything else. An emperor of the Roman world getting all artsy-fartsy and writing his own book, and writing a book that is full of the airs and pretensions of what I have mentioned on this channel. It characterizes philosophy as a subgenre. And one of those airs and pretensions is an eye always cocked towards eternity. I would argue that most philosophical writing has both eyes fixed on eternity, and that is the only explanation for how it can be so completely blind to the reading interests of its actual in-the-moment readers, which would explain why it is so god-awful boring. This is Marcus Aurelius pondering his life and pondering the essentials of his life and straining through his own viewpoint, his own what we would call his incredibly privileged viewpoint. The rough and vague tenets of Stoicism as he saw it, it's pretty easy to adhere to the screamingly self-centered doctrines of Stoicism if you have slaves to cut your food for you. If you have slaves to do everything for you. If your slightest whim is indulged in, has a long line of people wanting to indulge it, it's pretty easy to indulge in, don't let the world get to you. You determine your fate. It's pretty easy to think that way when you're the emperor. And I want to be delicate about this. Stoicism and cod stoicism has a great, great number of adherents in the 21st century. An enormous number of them. And they all dream about being emperor, which is a direct contradiction of most of the central tenets of what we would call this philosophy. In other words, this particular kind of cod stoicism is inextricable from the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. It's inextricable from the fact that you have this great philosopher king, because this sort of crap is only espoused by men, and usually only young men. The stoicism that is espoused in this book is far more complicated and multifaceted than its renderings when you go to the Jordan Peterson-esque modern cod philosophy that approvingly mentions Marcus Aurelius, they always approvingly mention him. And when you go to those approving mentions and those renditions, inevitably you will find that this emperor was adult, and he was also incredibly hypocritical, engaged the whole time that he was writing about how really we must just still our inner beast. Really, we must be true to our inner ethics, to our inner morality. The whole time that he was writing those things to himself, he was greenlighting and thumbprinting an imperial mechanism that was killing lots and lots of people. Lots and lots of people who had never done anything to him. But I will still grant him a certain amount of intellectual complexity. A certain amount. Not much, but some. And that is gone completely in the Dude Bro renditions of this book. That this is a favorite book among Dude Bro philosophers. And that is kind of redundant, because there's no other kind of philosopher. There's no other kind of student or fan of philosophy than Dude Bros. It is their religion, their secular religion. And despite the fact that they cite this author, they no more have read this book or adhere to what's in it than the Man in the Moon. The closest they get to this book is the pop culture reflection of it that they've all seen in Silence of the Lambs, when Hannibal Lecter, the ultimate one of the ultimate Dude Bro characters, spouts a cod philosophy rendition of Marcus Aurelius that itself bastardizes the complexity of this book. So it's a long and ugly tradition that starts with this. This is what sets off. I'm bouncing up and down because my little dog is going nuts. As you can hear, she's going nuts. She's choking and thrashing like a lunatic because I don't have her on my lap, because I'm not paying attention to her. I must be stoical about it. The central tenets of the philosophy that is reflected in this book and in all other works of Stoicism is monstrous self-centeredness. It is, don't care what other people think, concentrate on yourself at all times, turn everything to your advantage. It's Ayn Randian. It's the exact opposite of human beings being an intelligent, compassionate, and most of all communal species. It's every man is an island. And no wonder it therefore appeals to every Dude Bro weightlifter on YouTube, because they're already living monstrously self-centered lives, where not only do they have a chosen kind of exercise, they chose it because it's non-aerobic. They're all tobacco addicts, and so they can't do aerobics. So they chose this as a way, as an exercise that they could do, where they could gain a following, but also because of its screaming narcissism. They finish every workout session by staring at themselves longingly in the mirror. And now that social media is here, they can post all of that self-worship so that others can join in. And if you look on their bookshelves, their paltry little bookshelves, in addition to Jordan Peterson, you will find this book. Almost invariably. They haven't read it, but they have read about it. They've read reductions of it. They've read epitomes of it. They think they know what is in here, and they think that it aligns perfectly with their own worldview, which is that since you are the only thing that you have control over, you're the only thing you should care about. And by extension, by very quick and extremely misogynistic extension, when it comes time for you to find a wife, well, if you're going to care about her, and the only things you care about are the things you directly control, then... Anyway, my point being that, like all other philosophy, this is incredibly toxic stuff, a complete waste of time. But, that having been said, Martin Hammond's edition is incredible, just incredible. The Penguin Classic, these beautiful hardcover editions don't always go with new editions. You'll often get an older Penguin Classic edition because they're putting all of their money into the design. I guess I would gather that's the reason, but this is a newer version. It's a newer translation. It's loaded with great notes. There's not a reference or an allusion anywhere in this text that even so much as quivers without this translator pouncing on it, and that is great. That's just what you want. So that it is possible in this edition to just read this work as an ancient text. and I go back to this Penguin. This volume is just so nice. Most of these Penguin Classic hardcovers, I think I've been ignoring them, and as a result, they're out of chronological order. But most of these are just so lovely. They just are. You can put them in a bag. You can hold them in your hand. They're nice and solid, solidly made. They reflect. There's a lot of them too. There are hundreds of these things. I only have a handful. I only have the ones that Penguin has sent me over the years, and they haven't sent me everything. There are channels. Books Like Whoa. Mara at Books Like Whoa, I think, has a huge collection of these things, and it's just mouthwatering. I don't have that many of them. I wish I did, but they're a delight to have. They really are. I had a tendency to put all of mine separately on an upper shelf, and as a result, I sort of overlooked them in the course of this March of the Penguins, and that's not right. But I do recommend this volume. Not so much to read, certainly not to bow down and venerate, never to spout, never to talk about at parties, never, ever. The young dude bros or the older dude bros who were once young dude bros who are listening to me now, don't ever, ever talk about philosophy in public. Don't ever talk about philosophy at parties. Don't ever do it. Never. Don't be that person. And that's all it's for. So I might as well say don't ever read it. Don't even consider it, because that's what it's for. No one reads philosophy except to brag about reading philosophy. No one reads this crap except with the express purpose in mind of making other people feel dumb. Anyway, if you're going to read this, and I suppose you know, if you're canonically minded, you pretty much have to read the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius at some point. As long as you don't devote any part of your life to it, as long as you don't grant any kind of seriousness to it, you do have to read it. It is, after all, a philosophical inquiry written by a Roman emperor while he was emperor. That's remarkable and fascinating in its own right. But if you're going to do it, I would suggest this version, because the historical accompaniment here, the critical apparatus, is just first rate. So that is our Penguin Classic for today. It's a classic, but it doesn't look like the black spine paperbacks. Instead, it's one of these fancy schmancy hardcover classics that I've been largely ignoring. I'm going to look through some of my others and see what I can find. If maybe I can sort of quickly include them before we rattle on with the Renaissance. So who knows what will come next? I have no idea. Oh my God. So you must just be stoical and learn to live with what you can't rise above, as the eminent philosopher Billy Joel once said. God almighty. God almighty. What a load of crap. What a load of crap. I'm not addressing these comments, these next comments, to the women who are listening to me. I'm addressing them to the inferior species. I'm addressing them to the men. You're here to care. You're here on earth to care. Not just about your loved ones in your steak-eating house with your gun mounted on the wall. You're here to care about everybody. You're here to care about everything. Even scurrilous opinions quoted online. You're here to care. And you know why I know that's true? Because the minute you're not here, you won't be able to care about anything. And in the slippery slope, the slope that you have from where you are now to that abyss of nothing, you're going to have just enough awareness, unless you're lucky enough to get hit by the Crosstown 39. You're going to have just enough awareness left to wish with the most bitter acid in the world that you had cared. You're here to care. You only have this one life. You should be caring about everything. You should be involved in everything, connected to everything, worried about everything, happy about everything, whether it involves you or not. You're here to care. So take this, not this book. Oh, this book is lovely. And not this scholarship either. This edition is lovely. But take these ideas, take philosophy, which tells you not to care. It tells you to stare at your own navel until you think it's the best navel that's ever been naveled. Take it all and dump it out the window. Just dump it. Just get rid of it completely. One Regency romance, any one that you pick at random, is worth more than this entire so-called discipline. Just get rid of it. You're better off reading the latest issue of Scientific American and following up on the stuff that you find interesting than reading anything to do with Stoicism or Neoplatonism or Epicureanism or anything, any of this garbage. So God. So your Penguin Classic for today is both a recommendation and a caution, a polite, mildly mannered caution. I recommend this edition. I think it's the best scholarly edition of Marcus Aurelius that has been done in English, but I don't recommend grappling the tenets here to yourself. I do not recommend doing that. If you feel yourself tempted to adopt a philosophy, you should try living instead. And if you feel tempted to do that, drop whatever book is tempting you to do that and pick up the nearest work of pulp science fiction. Pick up the nearest adventure of Conan the Barbarian. Pick up the nearest work of biography. In fact, I've got a biography I want to show you. As long as we're on the subject of this, I thought I would show you this. The great biographer Frank McGlynn did a big fat biography of Marcus Aurelius about 10 years ago. This is a great book. Just fantastic. So interesting. I wish that I had kept the hardcover. This is from Da Capo, and they sent me the advanced copy, then they sent me the hardcover, and then they sent me the trade paperback. I think, did I keep the trade paperback because I am blurbed? I don't remember why I kept this. Oh God, look at all these blurbs. All right, well, I don't know why I kept this, but one way or another, I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. I recommend Frank McGlynn anyway. But this is just a terrific book. So there you go. That is your Penguin Classic for today. Penguin Classic hardcover deluxe edition, a lovely little thing, and a biography recommendation. And a tiny side of rant with coleslaw. So I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back tomorrow, and who knows who we'll be talking about. Thank you, BookTube.